they might have used OOUX. At
Ooh, yeah.
first,
What
I
what
was
told you that?
like,
Yeah.
it's like, I'll show you. Welcome to Oops, We Did It Again. I'm Sophia.
And I'm Allie.
We are here to, hopefully by now you know it, we're here to show UX designers what not to do. So today, Allie,
Yeah, what do you bring me?
I've got something special for you today. So we're going to really focus on isolated objects, which is
Mhm.
that the brain wanting to know how things are connected and how things are related to each other. An
Mhm.
isolated object is when a user comes into a system and is like, I can't tell how these things relate, or they relate in a certain way in my mind, but
Mhm.
then they're not connected in the interface. And I can't navigate through those relationships.
Mhm.
So we're going to fix two isolated object fails on this website that I want to show you. But I actually, when I first went to this website, I was really excited because I was like, they might have used OOUX. At
Ooh, yeah.
first,
What
I
what
was
told you that?
like,
Yeah.
it's like, I'll show you how it seems
Uh-huh.
very OOUXy at first. And I feel like maybe they used bits and pieces of OOUX, or
Okay.
like so many people, and maybe some of you watching this channel, you're like, this is kind of the way I'm already thinking. But you can see maybe it's like there was some intuitive or kind of like natural OOUXing going on, but maybe they didn't use the full process. Maybe it wasn't kind of formalized,
Mhm.
because there are places where it breaks down where I'm like, if they were like really going the process, like that wouldn't have happened and that wouldn't have happened. But on the first surface, at first blush, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I think they might have used OUX. But, and I'm interested to see what you think too. So
Cool.
the website we're going to look at is the World Wildlife Fund.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
And I also wanted to do this one because I just want to help them out, because I love
Yes.
this nonprofit.
Let's
So
see it. I'm
yes,
excited.
so we're gonna do a tour, and I'm just gonna let myself go down a few rabbit holes, because we're gonna look at a couple different things. We're gonna focus on the isolated, but this might be a little bit like the Alexa app, where it was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
let's just talk about everything,
There's a
because
lot to talk through.
there's a
Yeah.
lot to talk through. And with this one, like, there's so many cool things. So I also want to show what I think that they're doing really well. So we're just going to kind of audit the site, talk through some things. I want to get your opinion too, and let's just have fun with it.
Let's do it.
All right. So here we are on the World Wildlife Fund website. I am on a larger screen. So they might have wanted to show a little bit of this. So you're just seeing kind of
I was
like,
gonna say, I was like, what am I looking?
you're looking at
Okay,
seaweed. You're looking at
got
a lot
it.
of seaweed.
No content
It's
yet.
a jack
Okay.
of all trades in the fight against climate crisis. But the first thing I want to point out is the navigation. What we
Okay.
care about: people, places, species.
Hmm.
Like,
That looks
hello,
good.
here's all the things that we care about. It breaks down a little bit when we get to climate crisis and sustainability, which is more like instances of issues or something like that. So, or, and then like over here, public policy, science, business, these are more like, yeah, how we work. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to this whole, like, what are these? Are these goals? Are these like big projects? But we, like, these first three are like, I am so expecting I'm going to go to these and I'm going to see a list of places. I'm going to see a list of species. I'm going to see a list of people. Actually, we'll go back to that one.
Yeah.
So, and then get involved. They kind of put all their verbs together, which, like, I
Hmm.
do love in the navigation, all nouns in the navigation, or sometimes all verbs works. Don't love mixing it up, but at least they've like put all the verbs together
Oh,
until we
sure.
get to like educational resources. That's the only one that's not a verb. So just
Yeah.
advice for everybody out there with your navigation. Like, if you are going to mix nouns and verbs, like, cluster them and even style your verbs differently so that they're more calls to action. Or if it's like, okay, our work, okay, I love, this is my favorite part: people, places, and things. And then actually about us, this is all very OUXy. Like, I'm going to see a list of people there. I'm going to see another list of people, more people. I'm going to see a list of careers, values, history, safeguards, and financials. So I'm kind of expect it's all very Nowny, and I'm going to go to a list of those things. So
Interesting. I'm seeing still over there stories and updates and newsroom. I'm kind of sometimes I see this on websites of like, well, what's the difference? What am I going to see on the newsroom versus what's a story versus news versus updates? Are those all just different types of the same thing? Just curious
yeah,
about that. But
I'm guessing that newsroom is press releases.
Mhm.
But that's only from like building. I think I
Yeah,
know that just from being in this industry or something like that. I don't know how I
yeah.
even know that. I shouldn't know that, but that is something that most people coming to the site are not going to know. Like that's going to be your press releases. So most people would be confused by that, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, principles. Okay, well, we'll come back to those if we have time. We'll see. So the main thing I want to point out here. Okay, let's go to species first. Let's go see the animals.
Mhm.
And oh my goodness, there's like
Oh.
some cards and they're all so beautiful, but let's
Mhm.
click on the kitty cat. Okay, and now we have as Pepper's in the background.
I know. I was like, did
Pepper's
you
like
hear her? Yeah,
cat.
cat. No, dog, dog.
Dog. um okay, so we go to this lovely detail page with all these nice facts. So okay, Ellie, are you seeing this call to action right here?
Okay, adopt. Yes, adopt the.
Adopt the Emmer leopard, an Emmer
Okay,
leopard.
Emmer
I
leopard.
freaking
Mhm.
love this. Like, this is
Uh-huh.
a very specific call to action. So they were so smart. I don't remember when World Wildlife Fund started doing this, but where you could adopt a specific animal. You don't just donate to this nonprofit. You can't just donate, obviously, right there, make a donation,
Up there.
but you can also adopt an animal, and that is so freaking smart. So for any like charity or nonprofit out there, shout out to New Story, another nonprofit that I love. They're very clear about where your money is going, so that action
Mhm.
is so clearly tied to the direct object. It's not just like, oh, I'm just giving money to this kind of amorphous organization and then they'll figure out how to do with it, what to do with it. I get emotionally attached, so I think that this is a beautiful non-broken object, a nice direct manipulation, and I'm actually going to click on it to show you what
Yeah, I was gonna say,
happens
is it
here.
specific? Oh, it is specific. I was wondering if it was gonna be like just generic then, and then like donate page. But no, look at this. Okay,
No, you can even
habitat
get a
diet threats. It's
photo. You can get a little plushie to like give to somebody else. So they have a whole Christmas catalog where you can like, I mean, give a $60 donation and then you get like this little guy that has like a little certification with it. So this is further objectifying. They actually give you an object. And a lot of nonprofits do this, but it's not quite so tied to the thing or the project or the neighborhood. Or so if you work for a nonprofit, think about what the things are that people can get really emotionally attached to, and consider putting a donate button on those things, or an adopt button, or a support button that is directly connected to a project, a neighborhood, whatever your things are. So
I love this.
and then they go just have related items
Oh,
there, but like you can get the shirts too. I think they have shirts that are connected to donations for that particular species, which is
well, and I like how they pulled up here at the top the habitat diet threat. It's like a more about the leopard as well, like facts. It's pulling in some of that information too. It's like helping you connect better with it and
yes.
understanding it more.
Which you bring up a good point. It's good that they do that, because if for some reason I popped straight into this view,
Mhm.
how do I get back
Uh-oh.
to the leopard detail page? I had not thought of this one. So this is another isolated
Uh-huh.
object. So now that
Yeah.
I'm on this donate, like I'm within the call to action, like because somebody like linked me directly to this. I do want to be able to get back and learn more.
Yeah, like I would expect to see there in under those details, like the link then to learn more and go back to see it. And
Right.
like,
Right. Yep. Um,
and I'm wondering if there's some shape shifting there of like, are those attributes kind of organized differently than that detail page? I didn't get a close look at habitat diet threats. Like, is
It
it?
is. It is definitely. I don't even think diet was on there. So let's go back and look. And this the one that I was like, let's just go away from that because I didn't want to get too off course. But I did say we're just going to be playing around here and auditing this. We do have a little bit of shape shifting here. So and like, what is a symbolic species adoption versus a species? I'm guessing that some species you don't have the symbolic adoption option.
Yeah, like they don't have those same, it says like
Yeah.
kits and plushes. So like maybe not all of them do, but these are the ones that do.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so getting
Okay.
out of the weeds here, so to speak, let's actually go back and see. Yeah, so diet isn't even on
Uh-huh.
here. So you're good call.
But look
Definitely
at
some
those
shape
icons are
shifting.
great. Like I love those icons next to habitat. But
Mhm.
like link back here. Also, this is
Yes.
a problem with just updating content. Now you have to update it in both spots. It's nice
Mhm.
to have this information on that other page. Like we like that. But from a like content perspective and managing that, now what happens if you need to add a new habitat? Do you have to update it here and then on the
Yeah.
adopt page as well?
And like things that might be changing a lot, like population and whether it's
Mhm.
critically endangered. Hopefully it's going the opposite direction. But
Of course.
once I click on this, we don't have endangered level here. Yeah. I mean, even the threats, that's interesting. So threat is a thing that we're going to talk about too. But yeah, it's interesting how diet, be funny if it connected to other animals. um, but like,
Save this one, but you might be endangering the other one.
yeah, exactly.
In a purposeful, like, you know.
um, so I think, like, honestly, I would like this to all be one page, or like maybe some expand and collapse or something, like the
Mhm.
adopt, like maybe it pushes down the panel or something like that, in a nice
And why would you
accessible
say,
accordion way.
yeah, why is that important, Sophia, to have it all on one page
Well,
like that?
one,
Why would you
because
say?
like, I mean, you're basically on a different detail page than you have to, and you end up having these two different detail pages, which I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. You're repeating information, you're trying to bring information over, and I don't think that there's too much on this page. Like,
Mm.
I almost feel like you could even have like adoption products as an object on the other page. So because even like you're hiding this,
Yeah.
right? So like somebody might not click on adopt an emmer leopard because they don't know that they're going to get the little stuffed
Oh,
animal.
yeah.
So like actually being able to get to those little plushies, the products, basically the products are actually kind of buried. So they could be
Yeah.
surfaced right here. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. Having this all together. I mean, when I think of the Amber Leopard, like I want to see anything related to it in one spot, like having things starting to
Yeah.
disconnect things. Um, and yeah, it's like taking it, at least it's linking to it, which is great. It's not totally disconnected, which is step one. But like to take this a step further, have everything connected. I love that, seeing the little product cards with it. Um,
I mean,
like,
it could just be the scroll. Like, this is all kind of a scrolly deal. So the adopt and Amaryl, it could
uh-huh.
just scroll to the bottom. I mean, it's this long. I mean, they have that at the bottom. Okay,
Oh,
okay. So they have this repeated over here, which is really great. Okay, so redeemed themselves there. But what I would have probably done is I would have just blown out that entire interface, so you don't
yeah.
even have to click it. It's just all right here, like that. Just take take this whole
Yes.
interface here and just pop it at the bottom of that page. So you still have the call to action. It scrolls down to the bottom, and basically you scroll to the bottom of here, and it's like, go ahead and do the thing. We could clean this up to make it look a little bit nicer, maybe have a little bit more progressive disclosure, but in general, just combine these pages. And then in the case that you have a species that doesn't have what they call the symbolic adoption, then that might change down there, or you could say like request a symbolic adoption or something like that. So if they got enough
Oh, that'd
people
be
that
great.
wanted that,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So you could kind of see the difference between those. Like, oh, some animals you have symbolic adoption, some animals you don't. I think I might have said,
Upvote some animals.
yeah,
Yeah. I want to.
yeah.
I
And then
want
you
to
could
adopt one.
like sign up for alerts or something for when it's available. Okay, so here's what I was really impressed by at first. I was like, I thought that species and what I call habitat, so that they define habitats differently than how I've defined it. And species saver, they're probably more correct here. They have places and habitats. So I did not see this at first, But when I did, I got really excited. And actually, I think the first species that I clicked on didn't have a place. So it just said habitats and there was nothing to link to. So I was like, oh, that might be isolated, but they're not isolated. You still get the
place. Well, how did you understand the difference between a place and habitat? Is a place
So
multiple habitats?
a place is very specific. A habitat is like a type of
Broad.
Yeah. So like mixed
Okay.
forest, it looks like temperate broadleaf and mixed forest is the habitat, but the place is Amur Hilong.
On a map.
Probably not
Yeah.
pronouncing that correct. And then this is interesting. So they actually show Amur leopard here. I thought that this was a place. All right, so let's click over here to this place. All right, wonderful. They have connected their objects. So species and places are connected. I'm going to show a little improvement on that in just a moment. But they are actually connected. I go to this place detail and I can see the species. I see a tiger here, which is interesting, but then I also see the Amur leopard. And I can go to, if we want to look at some other places that have potentially more species. So they have it on a map here. Let's look at this desert. And no species there. Okay. So if there are species, they're going to list them there, which is nice. So they are connecting those. Okay, let me go back to places. And I want to click on this rainforest, Atlantic rainforest. Okay. So when I click through here and I go to threats, this is what I get. Okay. So they just kind of describe the threats, expansion of agriculture, including soy, beef, pulp, and paper. So those are certain products, if you will, that are being grown there. And let's click on another one. Let's go back to that and more. I just want to show a couple of these and we can scroll down to threats. Okay, here I got a little bit more on what the threats are. I've got illegal wildlife trade, which is sort of on this like call out. And then I've got habitat destruction over here. And so this is when I started sensing like, okay, like threat is almost a missing object. Like they just have it as sort of content on here. But something like habitat destruction or cattle ranching, right? Or soy production is a threat that could likely be repeated across multiple habitats and across even multiple animals, right? And like connecting, like what does the threat connect to the animal? Does it connect to the habitat? It seems like it could be repeatable content, maybe even a junction object between like, okay, here's the threat and here's how the threat is impacting this particular habitat. So this is one thing that I feel like is kind of a missing object, which is in a way like a little bit of an isolated object, but really they just haven't objectified threat. And the problem with that is for my particular dreams of connecting threats to actual corporations and even as far as going to which products, but like most importantly, the corporation. So keeping corporations accountable. There's a lot here on the site about what we can do. Personally, I believe one of the best things we can do is vote with our dollars. So if they ever wanted to do something like that, to connect a threat or a habitat, but particularly probably a threat, because it's probably a company that is having some sort of practice in a habitat that is a particular threat. If they wanted to connect companies and threats, they need to objectify threat. So that's this kind of missing piece that we have here of like, this is just kind of squishy. This is obviously just a content area. And then you have these like call outs right here, which I feel like is probably, I'm like already guessing in the design system, like this is like red sidebar call out or something like that. Like has nothing to do with it actually containing a threat. And they just have added this here.
It's interesting to me. Okay, so habitat destruction is that the threat? The threat is what is causing the habitat destruction. Right? Like,
yes,
I'm kind of interested in how they're categorizing threats here. It kind of does feel even a little bit wishy-washy. Like it's not what is actually who, and maybe this is where you're getting to is like who is actually threatening them.
Yes.
and in what way?
No, you make a really good point. Like, actually, habitat destruction is the overarching thing, right? Like, if
Yeah.
we fragile ecos, yeah, like this is kind of so like I would expect
Climate
like
trends.
timber,
Okay.
like
There's,
logging would be a
uh-huh.
threat. Like like, you know, deforestation from logging, deforestation from, you know, to create cattle ranches, yeah, things like that. So getting a little bit more specific with the threat. Yeah.
Yep. And then like I get poaching too. Okay, so it's like poaching is also a threat. Yeah, it is just more wishy-washy. So yeah, like what would you do if you did see, okay, a list of all the threats, right, on a page? What would that help you do? Like, because
So
that's kind of where I'm seeing you go is like, okay, let's
yeah.
list all these out.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Like, what calls to action would there be? Well, one, you
Yeah.
could probably click on, you could see a threat detail page. You could see all the habitats or those junction objects. Like, okay, this is how illegal wildlife trade is playing out in this habitat. This is the way that illegal wildlife trade is playing out in this habitat. Then potentially you could see companies or corporations that are involved, but also they have a really interesting thing. Let's see if I can find one for what you can do.
Uh-huh.
And so there's calls to action. There's actually specifically there's petitions that you can sign
Oh, that's
that are
great.
really, yeah, that are like actually tied to the threats. So here, stop wild. Learn how you can take action against the most urgent threat to elephants, rhinos, and tigers, which I think
So
is this
then
is the
each
poaching
threat,
one. So, but then they're
yep,
calling it wildlife crime here. But I surge in poaching. It's about poaching, right? So then
okay.
once you have a poaching object,
Mm-hmm.
an instance of a threat object of poaching, then you can feature these kind of petitions that are next to it. So and especially if then like poaching is one thing, but something like beef production, you could sign a petition to try to prioritize local beef, you know, as much as possible. So you're not getting a bunch of over farmed beef from South America. And you can kind of learn more about your like what buying decisions. You can sign these petitions. It's sort of you commit publicly to, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to steer your purchases in one way or
Well,
the
that's
other.
another way. I love this chart up here of supporters and the goal. Like, I almost want to see that on the page with that animal and see like what, or a page of all of these different types of ways I can support and yes,
Yeah. Let me how do
pledge
I sign
support. What is
them
this?
all?
Yeah, exactly. And like it's another way to instead of adopting and giving money, you
Mhm.
could sign your name and do it. So it's another way. Like give me as many ways, connect me to as many ways I can help either a specific animal or maybe it is that like place, that region, or the focusing in on a specific threat that I'm really want to reduce
Yeah.
in some way.
Yeah. Yeah. So once you objectify a thing, so we have this missing object of threat. Once you objectify it, then you can manipulate it more. You can connect it to other things. You can connect to the to companies. You can connect to petitions. You can connect the threat. I do think we need a junction object there. So between like there's poaching and then there's
Uh-huh.
poaching in the Atlantic rainforest, right? And how does that
Yes.
play out and what animals are connected to that? So the more connections you can build, also, it just creates the less isolated objects you have, right? It just creates this exploratory feeling, especially with something like this. Like they could make this so interesting. So it just really felt like you were like exploring the world through this lens where you're sort of going from place to place. You're learning more about a species, you're zooming back out to like a threat level and see like where that threat is happening globally, and really kind of getting this full understanding on endangered species and what's going on with them all over the world.
Well, and that's where isolating is so problematic is on websites like this, where the goal is education or to learn. Like the more isolation you have and the disconnection between content, the less you can learn. So a site like this is like a great way to focus in on like get those have more connected content. So contextual navigation, you can start to use that to learn and discover new things versus just the primary main navigation.
Yes,
That's going to be pretty vital here.
definitely. I mean, that's such a good point on the learning piece because we learn through also connections. We learn like
Yeah.
we're exploring, we're kind of feeling things out. But when to really understand a certain threat, I need to understand what it's connected to, even to understand a species, to understand what other species is it connected to? What does it eat?
Yes.
What is it? What eats it? And then you get respect for the thing. The more you understand the thing, the more emotionally connected to you get to it, the more yeah, and the more you understand how this whole system works. So this is a system, right? Like we're on this one blue dot together, right? Like this is all a
Right.
system, and this is looking at the system of our planet through this lens, and they could
Whole
just do a little bit
ecosystem.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah, an ecosystem. Yeah, there you go. That's what it's
Mm-hmm.
called.
And it's gonna like we talk about this often, like the trust of um the experience on like a digital product that you can build. And the more connections World Wildlife Fund will be seen as a trusted source of information, and they already are, but if the website reflects that, that's going to be a lot. People are going to come here and recognize and know that they're going to have good content, good information,
Mhm.
because you can learn and easily understand this very complex web of problems and threats and animals and how things relate. And it isn't something easy to understand, especially if you're not familiar to it. So having their
Yes.
website do that is going to build so much trust as an organization, right?
Yes. And overall, they're doing such a beautiful job with this. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
it is a really, really nice website, but you're so right that like when you get to things where like, oh, the content is a little bit different here versus here. There's these two detail pages. Wait, what's the difference between a species and like a symbolic adoption species? And it opens up all these little loops in your head and you're just like not quite sure. The more you can tighten in on this and really like show this kind of help people get familiar, right, with the system of the World Wildlife Fund, with this kind of like their domain, the more you're going to be able to learn, and then the more you're going to be able to trust it. So, especially with something like threats and how threats are attached to different habitats and different species, and
And the companies.
if
I
they
love
could
that. If
get
they
the
can bring that
companies
in,
in there, because I bet they know who they are. I
they know.
bet they know. And I'm actually curious why they don't expose the companies.
I'm
This is
wondering if they
another
legally can't.
yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting
Mm.
question. We are definitely going to send this video to some designers of the World Wildlife Fund. So if you're watching, I hope you're enjoying the video. Hi, friends. And then feel free to let us know, like,
Yeah.
what are you up
Answer our
against
questions.
here? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so a couple other little things that I wanted to get to here. So if we go to the people, this is another kind of missing object. So people's like I don't necessarily expect to see like individual people, but I almost but I like either whether it's like a certain community that is being threatened, their way of life is being threatened, like an indigenous community,
Mhm.
or a culture that's being threatened. This is more like this almost feels like, are these goals like empowering women? Like I'm always like when I see a thing like this, I'm like, what is this an instance of? Like, what am I actually
Yeah.
looking at? Is this a value? Is this a goal? In safeguards framework, advancing social policies. And then we have stories, which is cool. I'm going to click on one of those in a second. But let's just look at like we've got to take a little mental snapshot of this.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have things like safeguards. Where is it? Okay. So then this connects to, I guess, that piece over there. Let's go back. Does that connect?
Uh-huh.
It's the same lady, right?
It's the same picture. And is that
No, a different detail page. So that's interesting little find here.
whoa, they changed the picture immediately though. Look at you clicked in on this and now
Those
it's
are
a
two different pages, I think, explaining the same thing. Commitment to local communities, indigenous people. So that's with safe. And then if I click safeguards, if I click through under people,
also I've got a problem with you clicked on safeguards, but it brought you to a page that didn't have the title safeguards on it. Like I thought it brought me
yeah,
to the wrong page. That was
yeah,
just a little confusing there.
yeah. And there's somewhere else where they give like their values. Now I can't find it. But it's like little icons. Okay, so we found it. So it's actually discover who we are. And I think it's in another place too, but we also have these guys.
Mm.
Rebuild food systems, important forests. So these are goals. We have little like goals cards.
Icons and links.
And then
Okay. Yep.
safeguards is again. That's the same lady. She's wearing the same outfit. Oh my gosh, we have to see, where does this go? Okay, that one goes to that one. All right.
Oh, I
So
hate that
like,
safeguards isn't in that title. Okay.
safeguards not like a goal or a mission. It's like there's like projects and goals and missions, and there's somewhere else that they show projects. So like missions and projects and goals, which should be so important and so clear, is not quite clear on this website. We just want it to like, it should just look the same everywhere, have the same instances. I think we also have under sustainability, we've got like food infrastructure and corporate sustainability, and like one of the goals was also had to do with sustainable infrastructure. So there's like a different version of it over here. And climate crisis, I believe, also has something like that. No, it
Well,
doesn't.
as you're showing me all these, I'm just feeling overwhelmed. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, what is the goal? What are their values? What matters to the like I'm just kind of, do they have it together? Do they know? Like that's what the
Mhm.
vibe is giving me as someone who just doesn't really know a lot about this, which is not what they want. I know
No.
that's not what they want.
No.
I know they have their shit together, and it's just not being reflected on
Yeah.
this website because you have so many objects and it's not clear how they're different, and then they're also showing up in different ways on different pages.
Yeah. I
A
would
lot.
I would love like if it was people, places, species, and then like goals or projects or like our missions or something like that, and then it just gave you that nice list of like, okay, it's indigenous safeguards, and like call it that everywhere.
Yeah.
It's climate crisis seems like it would be, or like fighting the climate crisis, and then sustainability should probably actually be broken out into food sustainability, sustainable infrastructure, and corporate sustainability as like three different things. So you might even have categories within that, like
Yeah.
sustainability missions, cultural missions, but just kind of having them all in one place would be really nice.
Oh,
They're
you
sort
just
of
said another one,
scattered everywhere.
missions. Oh, where does missions fit into goals? And yeah, like all these things, I'm trying to figure out what's the difference between all of them.
Yeah, and they're very overlappy. And then like how we work.
Policy, of course. Yep.
Yeah, science. And I just feel like this would require a much deeper content audit. We're just coming in being like, I'm just
Yeah.
feeling around and I don't quite get it. But it seems like more work could be done here to sort of like put nice edges on those things.
Well, and I would guess that their own content management team has a hard time knowing where to put things as well.
Bingo.
Because if their website is not built in a way that they are clear on, okay, this is a goal, and this is where a goal lives, and this is how we link to other goals. And when we are talking about a specific species, it helps us move that goal along. But if that's not clear, they're going to be putting things in different spots. You have people that are starting and leaving the job that they have. So then there's like, it's hard to learn where to put things, and you just get different flavors of everything. And I can just, I can feel that that's just making it harder as to keep the website consistent and organized. And so I would guess that, yeah, that it's not helping.
I would love to hear from a content
Yes.
creator at World Wildlife Fund to hear like,
Yeah.
whoa, what is that like on the
Do you
back end?
struggle?
Do you struggle?
Yeah. Do you struggle on the back end? Do you know where to put stuff or what to label it? Or
Yeah.
is it, or do you have good documentation? Is it really clear?
Yeah,
I'm just
maybe it
kind of, yeah,
is.
curious.
Um, so another thing that like says no OUXiness. I don't know if you noticed this, but the species detail, that's the species detail page.
Okay.
Okay, mental snapshot. This is let's go to the Arctic. This is a place detail page.
Looks very similar.
Uh-huh. This
Very
is
similar.
the climate crisis detail page.
Yep.
So they definitely have like a landing page template
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
anything can go in. So we get that little bit of masking there. Again, not trying to add complexity here. And this is not horrible, but we do kind of get the same feeling on all these pages. I would prefer to have a species detail page, a place detail page, and a whatever this is, a concerns detail page, or concern slash mission slash goal detail page that are slightly different, that differentiate them so you kind of know where you are. But that's just it.
And it's helping that the images do help. Like
Yeah.
I'm looking at not an animal, I'm looking at a place. So that's helpful. That gives me some context clues for it. But yes, especially if you go back one, what was the Arctic here? Like the facts looked very similar to like just at the top to when we were looking at a species.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very very similar
It
structure.
also says adopt a polar bear, which is confusing to me.
Oh.
Only one? I can only like what other
What
animals
about
are
the-
here? Is that
Oh, but
there we go?
what about the fin whale? I definitely looked for orca. They do not feature orca. Yeah, why just this one? Yeah, it almost seems like here it would be like support the Arctic or something like that. And you could get something that's more about the habitat, which like a poster, that would be really cool, like a nice Arctic poster.
Yeah.
But so that would make it a little bit more directly manipulable. Yeah, this call to action feels a little bit funky right here on the place.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, last little bit that I want to show you. So if we go to people, I just know where this article is. We go to Restoring Brazil's Atlantic Forest. So this is a story. They have a lot of stories. This is a story about a place.
So if I wanted to go and see more information about that place.
Yeah, and like see what animals live there. It doesn't connect it. Even down here. And it also does at some point mention some animals, which maybe I can find again. Believe me, it does somewhere mention some animals that are specific to this article. So what would be really nice is to connect this. This is a little bit isolated, our stories, which I see this so much that like the blog posts or the stories don't connect to the things that they are about. And the fun thing here about doing that, the important thing about doing that is so many people might drop in on this story. Like if
someone sends a link, I send this to you.
They're Googling about something and they end up on the article where all this good, somebody worked really hard on this, all this amazing content is, and then you can't actually, doesn't give you that in to like go to the Atlantic rainforest, where then I can go to an animal that's in the Atlantic rainforest and then I can adopt one of those animals. So you want to kind of get people in the rabbit hole, right? And it would be really nice for WWF to do that here. So I will show my quick little fixes, and then
let's see it.
And then we'll stop picking on World Wildlife Fund. And again, I think that this is a beautiful website and they've done really, really nice. At first I was like, they must have used OOUX. And then I started digging, just found a few things. So World Wildlife Fund, hopefully you enjoyed this. And just before I share the fixes, I also want to let everybody know that's watching is that Allie and I do these audits professionally, actually. So if you're interested in having us audit, if it's a public website of yours and you're a big company, go ahead and send it along. We might feature it in an episode. But if you're looking for a much deeper audit where we actually spend like days, not hours. I think I looked at this for like an hour beforehand. Really getting in and figuring out all the shapeshifters, all the masking, all the isolating, all the breaking, and actually give you a report on that and the low-hanging fruit fixes. Grab one of us on LinkedIn. Just find Allie O. Fisher, Sophia V. Prater. We're easy to find on LinkedIn. Send us a message and we can chat about that. Okay, so here is my quick fix. This is on the leopard detail page where we have just the little place here, which they did connect it. I just want it to be a little chunkier. So just so I can see it a little bit better. And so we have a little tiny place card. I also would love to kind of move the things around. I didn't go that far, but to kind of put habitats and places more close together. I would play around with this a bit more in a deeper audit. And then the other piece, and of course you could click there and click through. The other one, of course, is here on that blog post, that story that we were looking at. We've got issue, author, photographer. Let's just have place too. And we can even do like the little version, the little linky version, or we can make a visual designer, not me, could make like another little card that it features that image. That image gets a little bit tiny right here. I did try it. But just that, it's as simple as that. What place is it about? And you could even you could go further and say like featured species or something like that and link featured species as well.
Perfect. Connecting that content.
Simple. Okay. So let us know what you think. And if you have any questions, any comments, we would love to hear from you. And if you're interested in OOUX audit, we would also love to hear from you.
Yes. Cool. Well, thanks, Sophia. I love that one. That was great.
I
want to go donate now.
It was a little bit long.
There's a lot in there. I hope this is helpful for you all. Happy OUXing.
Happy OUXing.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Bye.